Solleviamo alta la fronte, o curvati dal lavoro. Già sul culmine del monte splende il sol della
Unlike nearly all other political, economic, and social theories, anarchism does not have a defining position or a single goal. At its essence, anarchism is simply the questioning and rejection of authority. This broad idea only spawns countless other positions and actions. Some would take this idea to extreme measures, advocating strong, even violent actions through the propaganda of the deed. Others would promote gradual change through the propaganda of the word, while still others would examine their own lives through its context. Nestled in the heart of the Green Mountains, Barre, Vermont was no different in its prevalence of radical politics brought by European immigrants. This community, however, would create yet another variation of the anarchist movement. The anarchist debate and controversy in Barre, Vermont was influenced by traditions brought to America by the Italian stonecutters.
I was a fair enough carver, so they say, but I was never with the best of them. The best ones came from Italy. No better workmen, maybe, but with more of the artist in them, more of the inspiration. He had beauty in himself. He could put it into stone. For generations, Carrara, Italy was known for its highly desirable marble and the artisans who would carve it. The inhabitants of this community during the 1870s, however, struggled against the rising financial burden of the newly formed Italian state. The artisans and workers of Carrara and other northern Italian communities were no different in their pursuit for the elimination of injustice. To achieve these ends, socialism and anarchism would thrive in the northern regions of Italy, as they directed their efforts against the state, and the monarchist most prevalent in the south. Soon, Carrara would become a hotbed for these radical ideologies, particularly anarchy. To many of these skilled artisans, individuality and freedom of expression came with the trade.
Being an artist or being with the arts, you create something. See, that's what anarchism is all about, socialism. See, we're trying to do something different.
When the anarchist movement began in Italy, these stonecutters' artistic ideas would find a home. Oftentimes, however, this home would mean leaving Italy for the land of opportunity and employment to the granite and marble industries. In the 1880s, Italian immigration to America numbered 300,000. In the 1890s, 600,000. And in the next decade, more than 2 million.
Many of these stonecutters would soon find themselves in the central Vermont community of Barre, Vermont. Known as the granite capital of the world, Barre experienced a huge influx of foreign workers, beginning with the Scottish in the 1870s, and later including the Italians, Irish, French-Canadian, and Spanish. The Italians, more than any other ethnicity, however, retained strong cultural traditions. Judging by the most well-known historical events involving the anarchists in Barre, it is easy to assume that the city was a hotbed of radical and violent extremism. However, when one looks closer into the debate and controversy created by this movement, it is clear that Barre was not a hotbed for extremism, but rather a home of traditions of freedom and individuality.
I always feel, well, they call themselves anarchists, but I think they were just strong-minded individuals who, I don't think intentionally, that they would even really hurt. Ilya Corti, a self-proclaimed anarchist, is often regarded as one of the best stonecutters Barre has ever seen. His life, however, was cut short, not from the deadly dust that took so many, but from a bullet lodged in his stomach during Barre's most notorious incident of violence involving an anarchist. It was October 4th, 1903, and the noted socialist from New York, Guillaume Serrati, was supposed to speak at Barre's Socialist Labor Hall. A large crowd of both socialists and anarchists had gathered, awaiting his arrival. Growing rowdier and rowdier each minute, the speaker was tardy for his appearance. In the midst of the impatience, a tool sharpener, later claiming that he had feared for his life, shot into the crowd, hitting Corti. By midnight, Ilya Corti was dead. By the next morning, the papers had dubbed the incident an act of murder. A socialist had killed an anarchist. Some believe that a violent debate between the anarchists and the socialists brought on this tragedy, that the violent attitudes of the anarchists incited such action. The truth will never be known exactly why Alexander Goretto shot and killed Ilya Corti, but the philosophies of Corti did not constitute violence.
But see, here there's so many conflicts. There's a different faction of it. There's the bad and the good and the ugly and everything. See, nobody's trying to convince, just like I'm not trying to convince you or him, that my anarchism, would be a lot better. No, because you find other people, they venture the other way and create something. But here they flourish because, see, everybody were individuals.
This shooting was not the result of a violent debate, but rather the impatience for a civil debate. During Ilia Corti's funeral, the streets were lined with mourners, anarchists, socialists, and apolitical alike. His memorial was carved by his brother as a final remembrance to his life.
Well, you take that Galliani. He was nothing but a shyster lawyer. To meet on the street, you'd think he was nothing more than a grease monkey. But he really was a brilliant man. Luigi Galliani was not a stonecutter, and was not an artist, yet he became Barre's most well-known anarchist. Unlike the individualist anarchists, Galliani came from wealthy roots, having studied law in Italy. This would be where he developed a deep hatred in the capitalist system. After being exiled from Italy, Galliani traveled to the United States to spread his belief of revolution and propaganda of the deed. In 1902, Galliani was arrested for inciting a riot in Paterson, New Jersey, but soon fled the country. Due to its close proximity to Canada, the fugitive took refuge in the city of Barre, where he was pleased to find a significant number of self-proclaimed anarchists. Under the name of a local stone-cutting anarchist, Carlo Sabate, Galliani began publishing his newspaper, the Cronica Subversiva. This international paper circulated radical ideas throughout the world from his new home of Barre, Vermont. Galliani spread hope for revolution, but did not try to incite it in Barre. The city was more of a refuge for him than a hotbed of extremism. It is difficult to tell the degree of loyalty towards Galliani, but evidence points to the Italian citizens welcoming him, while continuing their day-to-day lives without thought of rebellion. In fact, violent episodes such as the Corti incident seem to dwindle in this decade living in Barre. His newspaper would give Barre an international fame, while seemingly leaving the citizens unchanged in their positions. Though Galliani's ideas may not have been embraced, he was given a deep respect by the entire Italian community. After his location was exposed in a socialist newspaper, local authorities had no choice but to arrest Galliani and extradite him to New Jersey. Nearly 200 people, however, more than the total number of anarchists, gathered at the train station in an attempt to stop his extradition. Nearly that many would sign a petition to the governor of Vermont as well. Nevertheless, after being set free in New Jersey, Galliani returned to Barre to continue his work in relative peace.
There ain't any more of that stuff around here that I know of. If there is, they keep it pretty quiet. I'm just another guy working for a living, trying to get by and have a little fun while I'm here. As Italian traditions would create the anarchist movement in Barre, Vermont, the disappearance of these traditions would bring the movement to an end. The infamous Palmer raids of the 1920s exported foreign radicals such as Emma Goldman and Luigi Galliani. But in Barre, the individualist anarchists disappeared for another reason. While in Italy, these artists struggled to make ends meet, but in Barre could make a comfortable $10 a day. Many of these once suppressed artists became shop owners themselves. Even Ilia Corti had partially owned a granite shed before his untimely death. The tradition of anarchism would also dwindle, as many stonecutters discouraged their children from following in their footsteps, having known the miserable effects of silicosis. By the 1920s, the anarchist movement in Barre had largely come to an end.
A rich laughter ran in the slant of the afternoon sunlight, the laughter of strong men coming from a hard day's work, the laughter of the unconquered and the unconquerable. Today, the anarchist movement in Barre has largely been reduced to two things: the art carved in stone and the stories of its creators. In many respects, the same thing. Across the world, anarchism has spawned debate and controversy, as it no doubt did in Barre, Vermont. Yet to the Italian stonecutters at the heart of the movement, anarchism was only a matter of interpretation. These immigrants came to the United States, politicized from a home fervent in oppression and injustice, carrying with them a drive to create. Radicals like Luigi Galliani never achieved their goal of outright rebellion, but the spirit of anarchism inspired the stonecutters to create masterpieces. To them, anarchism was not a revolution. It was not a debate. Anarchism was a way of thinking. Their artwork is one of the only reminders of the anarchist movement in Barre, but it is forever carved in stone.